Hey everyone, what's up Leets and Geeks? It's that time of the month once again, the first Tuesday, which means we're getting back into some RPG Elite philosophy. And we're still on quality number 8 because it is that important for an RPG Elite. And that quality is, it's about the story. When we are sitting down at the table for an RPG Elite, this is the most important quality. It's about the story. So you guys know this is what I do on the first Tuesday of the month, but if you're new to the channel, and you probably don't even know what's going on. So first, let me welcome you to RPG Elite. This is the place where we put the RP back into RPG. Really serious about that. We do this by giving you tools, tips, tutorials, and that real talk about the tabletop RPG space and culture. So if you want to hear a little bit more about that, then keep it locked in. So here we are, and I think this is the second from the last video in this series. So yes, there's one more video for quality number 8. I told y'all that this is important and we're going to take our time on this. Listen, when we're talking about this, we're talking about from an RPG Elite perspective. So if you're not an RPG Elite, then you're probably going to disagree with a lot of this stuff. When you come into the table, there is this unspoken contract, and RPG Elites know their role in this unspoken contract. There's like, hey, I get it. This is my contribution to this whole tabletop RPG experience. And these things add to the story. It also adds to the overall experience. So we got to look at it from one of two areas, the player side, the GM side. That's all you got. So we're going to start with the player side and what they contribute that adds to the story. So let's get to that first. So the first one is participation. They are coming in invested to engage with everyone at the table. So it's not just the other players, but the GM. They're there to participate. Now, I've already done a whole video on this, which was the last quality. So I'm not going to get into it in too much detail, but I am going to say this. RPG Elite players understand that participation engages and pushes the story forward. I mean, if people aren't engaged at the table, then the story goes nowhere. It just languishes, stays stagnant. So you have these situations sometimes at your table where you as a GM will ask or say, okay, what are you guys doing? And then they will be kind of like long pauses. Sometimes you might have to call somebody twice, that kind of thing. And it's because a lot of times the mind is not engaged with what's going on here. RPG Elite players, that's not a problem. They're there to engage. Let's do this. And you ask them those questions and they already know. So participation is one of the things that contributes to the story because it helps to make it active and move it along. Next is cooperation. Now, cooperation is not only with the players at the table, but it's also with the whole setting and with the GM. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. In terms of the players themselves and cooperating with them, there's a couple ways that you do this. The main way is that an RPG Elite player, what they will do is that they will look at their character and they will say, what kind of decisions can this character make and still be cooperative with the group as a whole, but don't derail the session in the process. I've had people talk about, oh, I'm just playing my character and just derail a session, bringing the whole thing down. The mood goes down. Players are, man, you know, that whole deal. Talking about I'm role playing. All right. That is a poor excuse, and it's poor role playing if that's what you're doing, because a good role player are going to make decisions that is going to help the actual group. Now, listen to me. I'm not saying that things don't get difficult sometimes in terms of interaction with other players, and even the role-playing decisions that we make for our characters can be a challenge for the whole group, that's another thing as well. But what I'm talking about is a little bit different. I'm talking about those people who are really in it for themselves, and then they use role playing as a cloak to excuse their behavior as a little bit of a troll at the table. That's what I'm talking about. RPG elites don't do that. We all know a PC has several options and several decisions they can make in a situation. And an RPG elite looks at all of these decisions that they have in front of them and they say, okay, what things can I do that this character would do, but at the same time is not going to derail this session and go in a direction that makes everybody at the table feel uncomfortable. That's how an RPG elite looks at cooperation. And that adds to the story because it makes the story develop smoothly. But when you're just in it for yourself, then that doesn't happen. And it brings down the whole session. We don't want that, folks. The next thing is the actual player characters themselves, the characters. Now, when it comes to these characters, RPG Elite players look at two things that are extremely important to them. Let's take a look at them. The first one is depth. RPG Elite players like to have their characters have depth because it connects their characters to the story from the jump, right? They want to add these elements to the story before the story even starts. They want to try to get a connection to it. So they'll ask the GM questions about, hey, where are we? What city? How about this? How about that? Because they really want to have a connection with the overall story that will be developed later on. So they're going to spend some time on backstory. They'll do a little bit of research. And they might even have personality points, just things to help guide them, because we all know you make a character, but you don't know everything about that character. You have to put them in all of these different situations, that's GM side, and have them make decisions based on that. So these characters will develop over time, but they got to have a strong foundation. And that strong foundation is in two places: in a strong backstory and in personality points. Those things are what RPG Elite players will focus on and then try to connect with the setting and story before it even jumps off. The next one is authenticity. Now that's just a way of saying they don't metagame and they stay true to their characters without, listen very carefully to me, without letting those decisions derail a session. Now, I know I've said that earlier, but you need to repeat yourself because some people might skip through stuff, right? Being authentic to your character, the only way you can do that is actually make the character interesting. So you're going to need to have some, let's go back to that first one, depth to your character. That's how you could be authentic. If you have a plain, banal, uninteresting 2D character, then okay, well, who cares? And you can pretty much do anything. And this is just an excuse for lazy players. And RPG Elites are nothing like a lazy player. They are going to get involved with their character. And if they have a GM who's an RPG Elite, they know they're about to get pulled into a story, and that the investment that they spend in creating these deep character backgrounds and then being authentic to those backgrounds during the developing story, they know they're going to be rewarded for that. So they want to be authentic to their character because being authentic means that the story is going to be more interesting. So that's what we have on that side. So let's look at the GM's contribution. Now, the GM's contribution is to facilitate the story, of course, And there are three major areas where the GM will spend their time pretty much exclusively. It's their purview. So let's look at them one by one. Plot is the first one, folks. We need a plot. We need a foundation, something for the characters to grab a hold onto. Now, this is not to railroad characters into a fully fleshed out, detailed. No, we're talking about a general plot, a jump off point. It's kind of like writing. You know what's going to happen in the chapter as a writer sometimes, if you're like me, because I've written about 5 novels. So you know that you're going where you're going. This is how I write. I write out a whole outline, and every chapter I know what's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen until I start writing. That's just how I write. This is the same thing with the GM and the plot. Listen, you got a basic plot, basic things are going to happen here and there, but you can't give all that much detail to it. You got to let that stuff develop. You don't know how it's going to happen because you have no idea how the characters or the players and their characters are going to respond to this, because that's all up in the air. And that's the wonderful thing about it, but we're going to talk about that in the last video. I'm not going to talk about it in this video, but the plot is the GM's purview. Now, let me give you a little something. I'm going to pull something off the bookshelf here. Now, right here, folks, is a book that if you're having problems as a GM coming up with different plots, then this right here is going to do you. I've had this book for years and I have pulled from it. I know what I'm talking about when it comes to what's inside this book. It's going to give you 20 master plots. And let me just give you an example of what it's talking about here. Okay, so now you got the basic quest, then you have an adventure, then you have the riddle. These are all plots for a whole campaign that you could run. And then you have revenge, and then you have rescue. And you guys know the drill. And there's 20 of them here. I only went through a couple. There's 20 of them here. And this is not just for GMs. This can be for players as well. How is that? How about your backstory? How about you're writing a backstory, you need kind of like a basic plot. And I'm not talking about you have to write a page of this stuff. It could be just 3 short paragraphs, but you need something in there to kind of move that backstory and connect it with everything else that's about to go on in the campaign. So how about I just go ahead and choose a plot from here, and that will be something that maybe you can do as a whole adventure later on in the campaign. You just never know, man. This is a great book. This is a great book. So if you need some ideas, I'm not saying you have to do every single thing in here. It's just to be a place where you can have a jump off point as far as an idea, and you can be like, oh, let's do it like this. Yeah, and let's do it like this. This is what these things are for. These are tools to help you as a GM and or player to make your whole experience in tabletop RPGs more immersive and enjoyable. So there's a link in the description below, affiliate link. Hit that bad boy if you're interested. Very reasonable, and go and grab this and be bursting with ideas, and you will thank a brother later. The next is setting. The GM is responsible for setting, and this really can help a story. It could bring a story alive. I mean, the superhero, the high-tech superhero headquarters, an underground cavernous labyrinth, or a creepy graveyard. All of those evoke a different kind of response from your players, and that can add to the story. That's why it's so important to use setting and use ambience and use good descriptions of your settings. It adds to the story. It really does if you do it right. So you need to spend time in that as the GM so that the story can be a place that comes alive. That's what setting does, really. It really helps a campaign or a session just come alive. And even if you're doing one-shots, if you have interesting settings, the players are going to want to come back for more. The last one are NPCs, and for those of you who may not know a whole lot about tabletop RPGs, that means non-player characters. So if I was going to give an example, they would be the extras and supporting cast of a television show or a movie. The player characters, they're the main characters. But you as the GM, you have the responsibility for all of the NPCs. So whether they're an extra that shows up for one quick second, or whether they're a supporting cast that the main characters or the PCs may run into more than once. That's up to you. It's also up to you to make them interesting. Give them a little bit of depth, one personality point here and there, just to make them a little different. And also, if you can give a little bit more theater and role playing to it as well, different voices, different, maybe they have a quirk or something about them that they do, that's even better. But that's all on you. Exclusively, GM, all on you. So those three things are what the GM is responsible for, and those other three things are what the players are responsible for. And as RPG elites, we take all of those very seriously, and we spend time in those things. Why? Because all of those things affect the story, and that is what we're there for. We're there to develop and immerse ourselves in this adventure of a story. We have no idea how it's going to develop. And that's the unique thing about a tabletop RPG, which we will get into in the next video. So, question of the vid, folks, is going to be this. Which one of these are you strong at, and which one of these are you weak at? Know your strengths, know your weaknesses. I want to hear from you down in the comments below. Let me know. All right, if you liked the video, then you know what to do. Crush the like button. And also, if you just like the general content on this channel, then you might want to hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell as well. And we will always be coming out on Tuesdays and Fridays, God willing, with a new video. All right, that's gonna do it for me, folks. A brother has just got to...
So exit, stage left.
Oh yeah. So, until next time, y'all. Peace! Farilla McGilla, I'm out.